All right, folks, in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and get started. If we have a few more people join us, that'd be great. I really appreciate you guys making some time for us this morning. My name is Phil King. I'm an enterprise technology specialist for Intel Corporation here in the eastern U.S. I've been with Intel about 16 years now, and my primary responsibility is around understanding, demoing, and helping customers adopt new and emerging technologies that Intel brings to market. So what we're going to talk about today is a little bit around some of the technologies we've introduced and some of the ones we have slated for introduction this year, and how they map into the education marketplace in terms of unleashing potential in that marketplace. So I'll start here. This slide talks a little bit about our latest CPU. The CPU was announced at the tail end of last year with some models lingering into the beginning of this year. We called that CPU Skylake, for those that follow such things as code names. And all of these different processors from Intel contain that capability, that same Skylake core engine. We have ones like the Xeon processors on the far left, the Core i7s, i5s. These processors really deliver maximum performance. So in those situations where performance matters most, these products typically carry a slightly higher price tag but deliver incredible performance. For those that care about mobility and battery life, we've introduced a family called Core M. So Core M sips power compared to other CPUs. For example, the CPU in my notebook pulls about 25 watts. The Core M processor pulls sub 5 watts. So what that means is 10 to 12 hour battery life out of a small tablet device, small form factor device. Now the performance of the Core M is a little bit slower or harbors to kind of the right side of the Core family. And that's partly because it has lower clock frequencies and other capabilities that help it save power. But this is a new offering for us that came out last year and will continue into the Skylake. And then when we're looking for good performance and amazing value, or when budget matters most, we have products like the Celeron and the Pentium. The key message here is that whether you go from Xeon all the way to Celeron, they all contain that same Skylake core engine. And the Skylake core engine drives a number of capabilities that we'll talk a little bit more about. Things like hardened multi-factor authentication. So the ability to use things besides a standard password as a way for a student or a teacher to authenticate. A face, a thumbprint, the proximity to their cell phone, the fact that they're in their physical classroom, those type of things, right? No wires. So I have a demo on the other side, and we'll talk more about wireless display, right? Things like wireless charging, as well as wireless docking. And then there's a very wide array of form factors. So I touched on a couple of them, things like a tablet or a notebook, but we have 2-in-1s, which kind of straddle both worlds. We also have things like the Nook, which is the next unit of computing. It's a very small form factor device, about, say, this big. Almost looks like more of a dongle in an actual PC. And then we even have, and I have one on display here, something called the Compute Stick, which is about double the size of your standard USB stick, has a HDMI connector on it, and is a full PC for about 99 bucks. So like a Chromecast, similar, but runs a full Windows, full PC capabilities. Okay, so we'll talk a bit more about that. Also, I'm sure many of you are exploring Windows 10, so obviously Skylake and Windows 10 have a readiness message together. We've co-developed features and capabilities in both the operating system and the processor so that you can extract excellent performance. So we'll go into a little bit more of each of these, and I have some videos prepared as well. I'll apologize in advance. I am not a K-12 expert. It's not where I focus. I'm actually an enterprise technology person, but I have been supporting the K-12 team extensively, and I have 3 kids in school, so that might make me kind of a pseudo-expert. They're all K-12 age. So we'll go into a little bit more around user experience innovation, but these are the things that we're driving with Skylake, that we're using the extra compute performance and extra capabilities to power. So better voice recognition, the ability to use voice to command control the PC, more immersive collaboration, the ability to capture gestures. So we'll talk about something called RealSense cameras, which I have also on display, that have the ability to map into a 3D world and tell just how far away you are, just what your gestures might be, sort of like a Kinect that was on your Wii, but a little bit more robust than that. I touched briefly on no passwords, the ability to use things like facial recognition. As we move into the realm of 3D cameras, the number of points on the average face was in about the 20s with a 2D camera. That number rises to over 70 with a 3-dimensional camera. So what that does is it hardens it further, makes it more difficult to try to, for example, hack a face or hold a picture up to the camera and try to trick the camera into believing that the picture is the individual, right? There's no 3D dimensionality to a picture. And then finally, we'll go into some more on wireless charging and wireless display. But the ability to, for example, retrofit a display like the one in this room, so that instead of having to plug in this VGA cable, I can directly attach to the display and conduct a managed meeting where my students could also connect and I could pass the baton between them so that each student could show their report or whatever else we were working on that day. Okay, so I have a video for you. I'm hoping this is going to play and you'll be able to hear it. So let's see. It's kind of a look into the future with these technologies.
Nice. Hey Yoda, send an email to Jennifer Bell with the message, "Hi Jen, my morning's filled up. Can we change our 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock? Let me know, all right?"
And the subject should be?
Meeting today.
Should I send it?
Yes.
Sending.
Morning, Nate.
Hey Tom. Hey Tom. Latest test results back from engineering. So you see right there, the problem you're dealing with?
Hey, Nate, need a lift?
Yeah. That's all right, I'll just walk.
Okay, Nate, take it away.
Okay, let's get started. The whole team's been working on this for a good 3-4 weeks.
Hey Nate, the designs look great. What's the next step?
Can you forward the message to the group? And schedule a video conference, thanks. Fly, Betty, fly. When Betty stretches her wings, she is beautiful and sparkling. And she likes to play in the sunshine and flutter in the breeze. She talks. When Betty stretches her wings, she is beautiful and sparkling. Oh, do you see that?
Yeah.
Look, put your hand up. See if it'll land on your hand. Wow.
Oh, awesome.
Isn't that cool?
It's cool. Mom, look it. There's a butterfly on my head. Wow.
So kind of a fun look into the potential of these technologies. It's really about increasing productivity, whether it be in the workplace, around the home, or in the classroom, right? And so these are some of the technologies that we just showed. We showed the wireless display when he walked into the conference room, the wireless charging at his desk, at home with that little bowl when he got home at the end of the day, as well as in his car when he dropped his cell phone on the console, the wireless data when he transferred the findings to his colleagues on that larger display during that little meeting, and the wireless docking when he walked up to his desk. He was able to just drop his tablet on the desk and there was no plugging or tangling with wires or anything like that. Really all of these technologies exist today. Wireless display is extremely mature, something you can do right now. Wireless charging tends to be relegated to some of the higher end devices, but it does exist. Wireless data is absolutely out there and has been for a little while, and wireless docking is another one of the features that's somewhat relegated to some of the higher end devices, right? Some of the tablets and some of the more eloquent form factors. But all these technologies are out there today, and all of them are things that Intel's been working on for many years, innovations that we brought to the marketplace. To talk a little bit more about multi-factor authentication, because we know how important security is, really, as you add more factors, you increase your security posture. And so aside from password, which is a factor that we're all familiar with, there's also the concept of proximity. So, is my cell phone near my PC? Right, because this cell phone has a SIM card in it, it has unique identifiers. So if I'm in possession of this device, it's like another factor that proves who I am. Just being in possession of this device isn't enough to prove who I am. But for example, if I'm also inside my classroom or inside the school, right, in a secure area where I wouldn't be able to just wander in. And then other biometrics like your face. We showed a facial recognition. So one guy was logging in, the other guy just walked up to his PC and the PC went, oh, that's you, you're logged in, right? And so those type of capabilities go well beyond. And then we also have something that we can do called PIN-protected transactions. So for secure transactions, people worry about something called a keylogger. You're about to type in some secret password, some key to your bank account, some other very important secret. PIN-protected transactions are actually done at the hardware level. So there's a pop-up that overrides Windows, and the screen scrape device or any other device can't read it. And you put your PIN number in to unlock your little secret. And there's no way that a screen scraper or a virus can steal that piece of information. So we've actually put some hardware components in to go above and beyond. All of these things could be part of your authentication or your multi-factor authentication strategy, right? So I just want to make you aware of some of those capabilities. We talked a little bit about RealSense. We'll see some more videos on these. There's a URL to one of the videos here. I believe we're going to make this presentation available afterwards, so some of the videos I have URLs for, you can go see them. We're going to show a couple things that are possible with RealSense. What you'll see is actually somebody scan an object and then be able to recreate it very quickly using a 3D printer, and some of the other capabilities that go along with that in terms of creativity around things like art and other capabilities. So let me just take you into this.
Welcome to the Sugar Lab.
The Sugar Lab is 3D Systems' digital bakery that uses 3D printing technology to print with sugar.
I'm Liz.
I'm Kyle. We both have a background in architecture. We bought our first 3D printer during grad school.
Then one day we printed a sugar tiara for a friend's birthday cupcake, and she loved it so much that it really got us thinking. Maybe this could be a whole new territory for 3D printing.
So we kept experimenting with sugar. We deliver to people in LA who can order online.
In 2013, we became a part of 3D Systems.
We started testing out new recipes and creating more elaborate shapes. But sometimes, nature inspires the best designs.
So instead of modeling a 3D design from scratch, we can actually use the Intel RealSense 3D camera on our 2-in-1 to capture the geometry we want in 3D.
I love that any idea we have can be made into a reality.
The technology is ready.
Very cool stuff. And something that might be a little closer to home for you guys, you may or may not have heard of a product from HP called the Sprout, but it's an all-in-one PC. It's a quite incredible device. So there's a quick video on this as well I want to show you.
When I got my first computer, I had this aha moment that I was going to use technology to make my artwork. There are things that I can do with a computer that far surpass the human hand. I could paint 5 million things on screen and employ all this randomization and have things get created that are infinitely complex. I'm interested in this convergence between design and technology. Technology promises me that we're going to give you tools that make the sandbox just a little bit bigger. So I typically like to start very basic and try to find chaos out of a very simple thread. But there is this inherent coldness to making digital art. So if I can pull anything that hints to that analog warmth, and all of a sudden you're being exposed to things like, oh my God, I never thought to do that, but thank you. I'm now going to use that in part of my process. A scanner, a depth sensor, these are typically separate things. If you could take all of those things, put them into a single device, it means that the entry point is 1,000,000 times faster. That's the potential of this machine. I can get creative quicker, faster, and easier. I'm Joshua Davis, Media Arts Director.
Cool. Excellent. So a really compelling product. One of the other things that RealSense has the capability to do is the ability to measure depth. So it actually views the world as slices of various depth. It has the ability to do some pretty interesting things from that. For example, in the photo on the left, and there's a video coming up I'll show you quickly, that basically the person shooting the shot is out of focus. The pool balls are in focus. Chances are you probably wanted to see the person. The pool balls would have been okay to be out of focus. So when the photographer took the picture, perhaps the camera focused on its own, or they didn't focus the way they desired. You'll see with RealSense you actually can go back and retroactively respond and fix that photo after the fact.
Today I have Dell's Venue 8 7000 series. Brand new tablet having everything you want in a high-end tablet. It has Intel's Moorfield processor, high resolution screen, and thin as in 6mm world's thinnest tablet. And on the back of this tablet we have Intel's RealSense snapshot camera. There are lots of things you can do with the RealSense camera. I'm going to show you only 3 of them. So we've all taken pictures with our tablet and phone, and sometimes they're out of focus. Here you can see I've taken a picture of a plant. Or maybe it was my friends in the background and I just had it out of focus. I can change the focus to any part of the picture. Let me show you. You can see now, instead of having a focus on the plant, I'm focused on my friends having lunch. I can also measure distance of items in that photo. I can click on one side of the plant, move to the other side, and you can see that plant is 2 feet 9 inches. That'll fit great next to my mailbox. The third thing I'm going to show you is image editing. Here I have a picture of my friends, and I want to add some elements to that picture. Well, I have a tree here. I'm going to go ahead and just bring that in to my picture. And you can see because my image has 3D depth to it, the tree is automatically placed and is the correct size. But if I actually want to get rid of a photo bomber, say, if I move this tree in front of that person, that tree automatically blocks everything behind it. All that happens because I have 3D information in my picture thanks to the RealSense camera from Intel. My name is Chuck Duvall, and this has been your Tech Minute.
Great. Whoops. There we go. So one of the other things that Intel is focused on through the acquisition of McAfee is other aspects of security. So there's a product that Intel puts forth with Intel Security called TrueKey. And TrueKey actually has some of these capabilities today. The ability to not only use traditional passwords, but other things like retinal scan, facial recognition, fingerprints. And many of you have probably heard of Windows Hello. So Windows Hello is part of Microsoft's Windows 10. Right? Windows Hello basically is something that's designed to use other factors besides the standard password as part of your default authentication. So as you move into Windows 10, some of this multi-factor capability is sort of built in. So what these are really 2 examples of this capability. Now down here, this is a little dark and I apologize for that, but what this is actually an outboard RealSense camera, the exact same model I have a demo of or a sample of in the other room. And what this is saying is it's saying looking for you. So the scenario here is what we call walk-away lock. So let's say the teacher is in the middle of grading papers and gets distracted and walks away, and now all the grades are available on the PC. A mischievous student could erase them, change them, whatever else. Walk-away lock uses the RealSense camera to keep an eye on you. And the minute you go out of the frame, the RealSense camera notifies the operating system. The operating system will say, looking for you for a few moments, and this thing will blink like a little eye. And if you don't reappear in the frame within, say, 3 to 5 seconds or some de facto time that you set, it basically suspends the system so that nobody can log into it. Basically like as if you had logged out. You have to log back in or use your face to get back in again if that's one of your password or tokens that you've set up. Right? So this concept of walk-away lock is very convenient. One of the examples we give in business is the HR guy's doing his thing and he gets an emergency call, has to run home to help his family, and his colleague walks into the office and can see everybody's salary or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of examples of where walk-away lock would be helpful, right? So the security is only as good as some of the other factors. If somebody logs in and does everything right, they have really strong passwords, they're doing it all perfectly, they did a fantastic job, but then they walk away inadvertently, okay, they're exposed in another sense. So this camera can also do stuff like this walk-away lock capability, which is an emerging feature, one that really hasn't made it out there yet. Okay. Another thing that we could talk a little bit about is digital inking, right? So the concept of a stylus. We find this to be very helpful, very productive for certain types of work, especially around art and education settings. And so we have a little video on this piece as well that I wanted to share. And this will kind of set the stage a bit.
I really like the stylus with Windows 8. It's very accurate.
Writing, annotating, sketching, highlighting, and drawing are a huge part of the teaching and learning process.
It's exactly like writing on paper with the smoothest pen imaginable.
If you don't want to use a keyboard to type in, you can just use your pen.
As a geometry teacher, you can think about drawing three-dimensional figures, triangles.
Mathematics can be hard sometimes, but when you are using digital ink, it makes it come alive.
Yeah, so I think that was kind of a compelling little piece on where digital ink fits into the classroom, especially around certain practices like mathematics, for example. We also saw in the previous videos earlier a little bit about voice recognition. There are some new capabilities coming out like Bing Translator, but I mean, what really is voice recognition? It's the ability to deal with things like dictation, to use it to search the web. I don't know if anyone has seen, Cortana, which is part of Windows 10, which is basically like a Siri for those folks that are more familiar with that search piece. But basically, you can say, "Hey Siri" or "Hey Cortana, where's this? What's that?" etc. Right? So this can be really helpful. I think David gave a great example where every once in a while a student will pull out a phone and try to Google something because they don't know what it means. Right? Without that critical piece of information, it's like reading a sentence out of context. It's sort of like lost. Right? And so with this, it sort of takes away the need to type it, right? Because obviously typing it on your phone, imagine if you don't have to imagine, but you can just quickly recite it. The ability to control PC functions. So the gestures, the cameras can do some of this as well. For example, turning pages through certain types of gestures that you can teach it. But obviously you can control PC functions. The example we saw was a gentleman sending an email, drafting, sending, adding the subject, sending it out to move an appointment on his calendar. And then there's obviously collaboration, right? So the ability to share voice between points, etc., allows people to collaborate more richly. So we believe voice recognition is an important component as well, and the Skylake processors are very, very good at voice recognition. Okay, so I have another little video piece here I want to share. I thought this one was really kind of a little bit tickle the heartstrings, so to speak, I guess.
Hi, can you guess where I live?
¿Te encuentras en América del Norte?
Yes. Do you live in Central Mexico?
Sí. ¿Te encuentras en Estados Unidos de América?
Yes. Do you live in a capital city?
Sí. ¿Estás cerca de Seattle?
You're very close to Seattle. Are you in Mexico City?
Sí. ¿Estás en Tacoma?
Yes. Very good guess.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Do you like living in Mexico City?
¿Te gusta vivir en la Ciudad de México?
Aquí está muy lindo.
Here is very nice.
What do you do for fun?
¿Qué haces para divertirte?
Voy a las playas de México.
I'm going to the beaches of Mexico.
I like to swim.
Me gusta nadar.
A mí también.
Me too.
Where in the world do you wish to travel?
¿A dónde en el mundo te gustaría viajar?
A Rusia.
To Russia.
¿Y tú?
And you?
Everywhere.
Sería increíble algún día verte en México.
It would be amazing to see you someday in Mexico.
I would really like to visit you sometime.
Me gustaría mucho visitarte algún día.
A mí también.
Me too.
So sort of an adorable little example of how this could really help people reach out perhaps beyond their own school district or even beyond their own country. I want to kind of end up with this. I'm going to leave a little bit of time in case there's any questions and give you some free time between periods here. But this K through 12 blueprint, David mentioned this also. This is something that was sponsored by Intel Education. So Intel actually has an entire group and team that focuses strictly on the education piece. I'm not lucky enough to be a member of them, but they elected me as an honorary member for today. The K-12 Blueprint really gives you things to help you plan and implement some of the things that you saw today in terms of cutting edge or new technologies and how they map into the classroom. There's some examples of some success stories. There's several buckets around leadership policies, around curriculums, the infrastructure, where to get funding, how to do professional development. So I encourage you, if you've never taken a look, to maybe even take a sneak peek at the K-12 Blueprint. The URL's up there on the screen. There are some tools that are available in there to help manage some of the change that's going on. Like, for example, how do I deal with the fact that a lot of my students have devices they want to bring to school? Right? A lot of teachers in schools say, "Yep, you're not allowed to use that device. If it's a home device, it gets shut down, locked up, whatever else." In fact, they may have better technology than you can give them, right? And so is that the right decision or not? So there's some things around that. So each one of these has sort of its ups and downs. I'm sure we could spend quite a while on Common Core or even things like policy and leadership. So I encourage you guys, if you haven't already, to take a sneak peek at this. After we finish here, which is going to be just in a moment, I'll be available in the other room. I have a little demo in the back of some of these capabilities. I'm more than happy to speak at length on any of them. I'm better with the technology than I am with most of the other stuff, because that's sort of my role in all this. But with that, I'll say thank you for your time today. I hope you found it interesting. I thought the videos were a nice touch, especially for a guy who's not all that K through 12 savvy. But I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have about the technology. According to my clock, the session has about 7 minutes remaining. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. And if not, I, again, appreciate your time and attention today. Please. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yep, so Windows 10, Bing Translator is a feature of Windows 10, and my understanding is that the voice recognition and the translation is harboring upward of 98% accuracy right now. Some of the most accurate voice recognitions, like Kurzweil voice and things like that, they get up above 99%, around 99.5, 99.7%. So I think that there's a small amount of work that still needs to be done to perfect the technology with Bing Translate, but it's quite close. And keep in mind that Skype is now owned by Microsoft, so when I say Bing and I say Skype, you should think to yourself, those are very easily tied together because they come from one technology provider, aka Microsoft. Yeah, so I found that the Windows 10 performance with my customers has been very good. The challenge that some of my customers have run into is that they started running very early versions of Windows 10 and sort of didn't read the disclaimer that said, you may have some performance issues with this because it's not fully baked yet. And so they started doing performance measurements on pre-production software and said, wait a minute, this isn't exactly what we expected. And Microsoft was in the process of enhancing some of those areas. If you fast forward to today, because some of my customers have been looking at Windows 10 since the very earliest iterations of it were available to the general public. Fast forward to today, and what you'll find is that most PCs get faster if you put Windows 10 on them compared to Windows 7 or Windows 8.1. And so the performance actually has completely flip-flopped from, we saw a performance that was a little bit questionable early on, to now there seems to be a performance advantage over the other operating systems that are in the marketplace. It's a great question, though, because I had heard similar things early on. Yeah. You can sense it when you use the PC, yeah. And for me, corporations, I call on very, Fortune 1000s, probably around 50 of them. Maybe 20% have a strategy to get Windows 10 rolled out fully this year. Probably another 20% are going to start this year and probably finish next year. And then probably another 20 or 30% are beginning investigations actively now because they want to get over as soon as they can. So by the end of this year, you'll probably see about 1/3 or a little higher than that adoption rate in the enterprise, at least from what I can see in my small cross-section. I saw another hand over here.
The facial recognition retinal scans, is this now currently available? Is it part of the chipset? Is it an additional cost?
Yeah, so the TrueKey piece is an additional piece of software you have to license. The retinal scanning piece I don't believe is fully ready yet, not because the technology isn't there because the cameras aren't in production that have the level of accuracy to do a retinal scan. So the cameras that I showed you today from RealSense, those are first generation cameras. The second generation cameras, which are likely going to be in next year's model or later this year model PCs, those cameras will have the ability. There's a new camera called the SR. It's a short range camera, has the ability to do like a macro and zoom in so that it can do a retinal scan on you from a reasonably short distance of, say, less than a meter. So that piece is not reality today. The rest of the components are. So you can get TrueKey, you can do multi-factor authentication with your phone, your proximity. Those capabilities are all available today. Okay, yep. Other questions, folks? Okay, well now we're officially only a couple minutes away from our end, so if you guys want to roll out, don't let me hold you in. Thanks again for your time and attention today. Awesome.